Hi guys, welcome to Dubs Only Sports. This is episode 11. Make sure if you haven't already, go follow us on our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and then you can also find the full podcast on Spotify and YouTube. We're just gonna jump straight into this episode. Week 17 has now almost concluded. There's still the Bengals Bills game. That's on Monday night.
Big
We're
game.
recording this. Yeah, we're recording this on a Sunday, so we might have an episode designated for that. We don't know yet, but depending on how the game goes tomorrow. But for right now, we're gonna be doing NFL to start things off. I feel like one of the most interesting games, the Vikings. Who are the Vikings playing?
Packers. Packers.
Packers. The Vikings Packers. Battle of the NFC North. Vikings, what, 12-3 going into the game. Packers were like 7 and
7 and
8.
8, I think. Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers just comes up slinging, so much so that they put their backup quarterback in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, we saw how they played against the Colts, and, luckily they came back and won that game. But this time against the Packers, not as lucky. What are we thinking?
No.
What does this mean for the Vikings and especially for the playoffs?
Yeah, well, the Minnesota Vikings just exposed that they're complete frauds. And I think everyone needs to know that because they've been lying to the American public for this whole time. And I feel like it's justified for this to happen because they are such an overrated team. They do not deserve to have the record that they do. They've all their games that they've won have been super close games that they won on like their last possession. And then their losses, they're just getting destroyed because they're just not that good of a team. I mean, to be quite honest, to be quite frank, they're just not that good of a football team. I mean, they have their quarterback, let's to get it started with. Their quarterback is Kirk Cousins, who, of course, everyone knows he's having a very good year this year for himself, but he's just not that good of a quarterback. I don't know what to say. Like today, you look at the stats 18 to 31, 205 yards, one touchdown, three picks. Like, and this is not a good Packers defense. I mean, by any stretch, the Packers defense has not been that good this year. They gave up 40 plus points to the Eagles. Not a good defense at all. And they made Kirk Cousins look terrible. He had the same kind of
Mhm.
thing happen against the Cowboys where they lost 40-3. They were down 33-0 to the Colts. I mean, they're just not that good of a football team. I mean, they got lucky because the Colts were so abysmal that they were able to come back. But I think it just shows that the Vikings are complete frauds. They right now I think are ranked. I think they're the 3 seed. Yeah, they're the 3 seed in the NFC. They're gonna hold on to the 3 seed in the NFC because the Buccaneers record is terrible. But
Mhm.
they're probably gonna have to face. I mean, if we're looking at the playoff picture right now, the Buccaneers are gonna face the Cowboys or the Eagles, depending on who wins that division.
Yeah.
And then the next best team is the Giants. So I think the Vikings would have to play. Or no. I think would they have to play the Giants?
The Lions?
The Let me see. Okay, so let's go through this. So the Eagles would get a bye. It's a
Yeah.
17 playoff. The Eagles would get a bye. The San Francisco 49ers will play the last team in. So right now that's going to probably be it's the Seahawks, Lions, or Packers. So it's one of those three teams. The next matchup is the Vikings versus the Giants, and then the other matchup would be the Cowboys versus the Buccaneers, or the Eagles versus the Buccaneers.
I'm sorry. Say that again. What, you said the Vikings
Yeah, okay.
twice.
Let me repeat myself. Let me repeat myself. I've been very unclear. Let me repeat myself. The number one seed is going to be the if the Eagles, let's assume that the Eagles win and they're the one
Yeah.
seed. Let's just assume this.
Yes.
Let's just because
Okay.
Jalen Hurts is going to come back. Let's assume that the Eagles are the one seed. So the Eagles would be the one seed. The two seed would be the 49ers. They would play the seven seed, and the seven seed is either going to be the Seahawks, Lions, or Packers.
How would the 49ers be the two? Is that actually true?
Yeah, because they're the two seed. They're 12-4. And the Vikings are 12-4, but they have the tiebreaker over the Vikings.
Oh
So
my
they'd be the two
God.
seed. Yeah, so the 49ers would be the two seed. They play the seven seed, and the seven seed is either going to be the Seahawks, Lions, or Packers. If the Seahawks lose and the Packers win, then the Packers are in. If the Packers win and the Seahawks win, I think the Seahawks have the tiebreaker right now because they're ahead in the standings right now. So I think the Seahawks have the tiebreaker over the Packers. If the Lions win over the Packers and the Seahawks lose, then the Lions get into the playoffs. But it's a whole tiebreaker thing. Then the next one would be the 3-6 matchup, and the 3-6 matchup is the Vikings versus the Giants.
Okay, yeah.
And then the 4-5 matchup is the Buccaneers at home versus the Cowboys. So assuming all that, I think it shows like the Vikings are not going to do that well in the playoffs. I mean, they're getting kind of lucky because they get to face the Giants instead of the Cowboys. So fine. I mean, if they play if they play the Giants, they'll probably win against the Giants at home. But who knows? I mean, they could easily lose that game because I just don't trust the Vikings because their defense is they used to be really have really good defense. Their defense is not that good this year,
Hmm.
and their offense is very reliant on Kirk Cousins playing well. And I just don't think you can trust him playing well. I mean, he's just not that good of a quarterback. I know everyone's gonna say I'm hating on him. He's had a good year, but like whenever you need him to perform in the big games, he doesn't perform. I mean, everyone's gonna say, "Oh, he beat the Bills." The Bills had that game won, and they gave the game away. Like
Hmm.
he did not beat the Bills. He looked terrible for most of that game, and then they came back at the end and they won that game on some crazy luck. I mean, that stuff on that Justin Jefferson catch was insane. I mean, that was crazy. I don't even want to hear anything about that game. Fine. But I don't see the Vikings doing that much. I mean, they might beat the Giants, but then they play most likely the 49ers. Like they're not going to San Francisco and beating San Francisco. I'm sorry. They're not doing that. That 49ers defense is going to give up like maybe a touchdown to them. I mean, it's going to be over. So, yeah, I just want to get that out of the way. I think the Packers from the depths, I mean, they were out buried. And now if they win and the Seahawks lose, I think they're in the playoffs. So I mean, everyone was saying to start Jordan Love and bench Aaron Rodgers. Now they might not make the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, no one wants to face that team with Aaron Rodgers. I know that they're not a great team and they easily could lose in their first game. But same
Yeah.
thing with the Tom Brady team. You don't want to face the
Hmm.
team in the playoffs. I mean, I think they would have to play San Francisco. So I don't think that they're going to go to San Francisco and win in San Francisco. But
That would
I
be
mean,
funny
who
though,
knows?
because that's a
That would be
rematch
funny.
of last
A
year
few
of the
years ago,
divisional
yeah.
games. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. That last year too. Yeah. I mean, the 49ers have the Packers number recently, so maybe some change of fortune. But
it's
yeah,
yeah, I feel like
like, what do you think about the Vikings?
I mean, I'm an Eagles fan, so I watched that game against the Vikings that we played. And at the time, it was like a very good win because the Vikings were just heavy favorites. And like coming out of it, I was like, oh, like the Vikings, they looked like a good team. It's just like, the Eagles just performed better that night. Now looking at, how they've done against teams like the Colts and how they've done against the
Cowboys
Packers today,
and
the
the Packers. Yeah.
Cowboys, and it's just like, yeah, like, you talk about being frauds and it's just like, there were definitely like they're still a 12-win team, but that's
Yeah.
because their division was just so awful at the beginning of the
And they
year.
won so many close games, one possession games that they could have easily lost. Their record is not really like doesn't resemble how good of a team they are. I think that
Yeah.
their record's a little inflated just because they've had so many easy games and just they're I mean the Bears have been terrible this year. The Lions were terrible at the beginning of the year, and that's when they caught them. So that
Mhm.
was just but yeah, I think that the Vikings are frauds. On the other hand, some kind of on the opposite spectrum, the Jaguars have just been going crazy. I mean, they lost a lot of their early games. I think they were like 2-6 around there and not that good. Now they're 8-8. They're gonna win
Mhm.
the division probably because they face at home. They face the Titans at home. The
Which
Titans
is
don't
the
have a quarterback.
decider.
Decider to get into the playoffs, but it's at Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence is playing amazing. And Tennessee doesn't have their quarterback. They have a ton of injuries. I think that the Jacksonville's going to win that game. And Jacksonville's going to make the playoffs. I mean, that who would have thought after that terrible season they had last year with Urban Meyer for Doug
Mhm.
Peterson to come in and just like totally change the culture and just make a winning team now? I mean, it's impressive.
I mean, we did say that in our last NFL video about
Yeah,
how, the AFC South is literally going to be decided on the Jags Titans game at the end of the
yeah,
year. And here we are. If the Titans win,
it
they go to
is.
the
Yeah,
playoffs. If the Jags win, they go to the playoffs. They've got the same divisional record at 3-2, which means that, that's what it's based on
this is
after
the
you
game. This
look
is the
at
game that
record.
matters. Yeah,
This is it. Yeah.
yeah,
Titans will
winning in.
Yeah, Titans are coming in 7-9. Jags are coming in 8-8 after a dominant win against the Texans today. I
Yeah,
mean, it's weird because these aren't like the two greatest teams in the
yeah, agree.
but for the Jags and like what they've had to like overcome in recent years,
It's good
it's
for them.
pretty
Yeah,
it's pretty fitting for like how
yeah.
they're going to get into the playoffs.
Like
But
in the future, they have a lot of potential.
yeah,
That team.
absolutely. I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence as an Eagles fan. I know Doug Peterson is a great coach. Led us to Super Bowl 52 with Nick Foles, so we know he's a good coach. You look at other assets they have like Etienne and what's the receiver I'm thinking of? Hard to
Not
name a
watch too many
Jags
Jaguars.
receiver. Not watching too many Jags games, guys. I'll be
Not
honest.
watching too many Jags games. But I mean, Evan Ingram has been pretty good for them this year. I mean,
That's what I'm thinking of. Evan Ingram.
Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, and then Zay Jones. So they have
Mhm.
some guys, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, It's a good team.
Yeah.
It's a good team. I don't know how they're going to do in the playoffs. I don't know who they're going to match up against, but if they're the 4 seed, I think that they would play. Let's see, who would they play? They played like the Chargers or Ravens,
Mhm.
so
And we
it could
saw
be
the
a tough game.
Ravens. We've
But
just
it's at
seen
home.
we've just
It
seen the
would be in
Ravens score
Jacksonville,
today.
and Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Chargers are right now the better team, but out of those two, out of the Chargers and Ravens. But I mean, the Chargers always choke in the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't count the Jaguars out at home in Jacksonville. Who knows? So, yeah, I think
Mhm.
that's another interesting thing. Now, I feel like another interesting game was the Broncos Chiefs
I
because
was just
the
about to say
yeah,
that.
yeah, because the Chiefs, it was a close game, and the Broncos actually played pretty good considering that they went to Kansas City and they almost won that game. But
Hmm.
big win for the Chiefs. Now it sets up if the Chiefs win their final game and the Bengals beat the Bills, the Chiefs will be the 1 seed in the AFC. And that's
Yep.
massive for the Kansas City Chiefs, considering that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but their defense is not as good as the Bengals defense, is not as good, especially not as good as the Bills defense. And they have to go to
Yeah.
Buffalo or to Cincinnati. That's gonna be very tough for the Chiefs without having like those really great wide receivers. Like they had Tyreek Hill before. Now they have good wide receivers like MVS, and of course, they have Travis Kelce. But I feel like it's big for them to get home field advantage. Playing in Arrowhead is a massive advantage. They've had 4 straight AFC Championship games there. Probably going to be 5 if they get the 1 seed. So it's a big game between the Bills and the Bengals. If the Bengals win, it kind of helps the Chiefs because I mean, unless the Chiefs lose, then the Bengals can't get the 1 seed. But yeah, I mean, I thought like Russell Wilson actually didn't play terrible. The Broncos stayed in this game, but I mean their season's over. They're 1-8 on the road. They're four and
Yeah.
12 overall. The Chiefs needed to win this game and they won it. But I feel like the Chiefs they weren't as good as they should have been. They should have won this game by more. But it's one of those gutsy wins that you get the win and move on.
Yeah. It was yeah, I just remember like like consistently like seeing the score lines throughout today and the Chiefs Broncos game just like constantly being a one score game between the teams and
Yeah,
being like that doesn't really add up because we've seen the Broncos this year and they're not that good, especially away. Like you just said, they're 1-8 away. So, you know, it was definitely an interesting game. And I guess it kind of like sets up like how like good like the potential that's there for the Broncos, especially like heading into the final like the end of the season and then going into next season. It could be, something to really look out for in the Broncos, but they've just been awful this year and they got eliminated very early on, especially with a quarterback like Russell Wilson. It's pretty surprising. But yeah, that Broncos Chiefs game was a very interesting one. Um, to move
also
on a
just
more
yeah.
de- to move on a more depressing note,
Go
my
go ahead,
Eagles.
say it. Yeah, what happened to your Eagles, bud?
We don't have our starting quarterback. Gardner Minshew, don't get me wrong, is a talented guy, but he is just not the QB for Philly. I'll be honest. And yeah, we were atrocious today. Um Not the greatest loss, especially when we're trying to still clinch. Like we've literally spent the
Question, yeah.
last 2 weeks trying to
Yeah,
clinch the number one spot in the
and
NFC
you lost both.
playoffs. Exactly. It's kind of, it's really
It's not
starting
good.
to
It's not
hit
good.
home right now.
Yeah.
And we would be the team to lose that
To choke
spot.
it, yeah.
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 So, but I mean, Gardner Minshew, still threw for like 270 yards.
But he was not good. He was struggling the whole game. They couldn't move the ball. He wasn't getting any first downs. I don't think in the first half they got like one first down. But I think this brings up a bigger question. Does this solidify Jalen Hurts as the MVP of the NFL this year? Because
Yes, I mean
I mean,
the Eagles are a completely different team when Hurts is playing. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I was watching the game. The snap
yeah,
counts are so off between
yeah,
the O line and Gardner Minshew. Whereas with
yeah,
Hurts is there, you're not worrying about that stuff. The entire game today,
yeah.
I was like, please don't false start. Please don't go
Yeah,
offside.
they were totally out of sync. And I think that's also partially because Lane Johnson wasn't playing, but still, I mean, they had no rhythm. They were totally unorganized. I think it just shows Jalen Hurts should be the MVP of the NFL this year. I mean,
Yep.
that team was 13-1 with him as a starter, and they're 0-2 without him as a starter. They're struggling to score points. I mean, they struggled today. Against the Cowboys, they didn't struggle to score points. They just gave the game away with some bad defensive possessions and a few interceptions, a few turnovers. But
Hmm.
I think it just shows because Jalen Hurts, what he does is he might not be the best passer, but
Yeah.
by running the ball, he controls the game because he can control the time of possession. He can get first downs with his legs. He can convert third downs, and he manages the game well. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over that much. He's very smart with the football. He's like a game manager, that can run on third down. He's like, it's a perfect strategy for a winning team. They've been hurt, of course, because Lane Johnson is out and they've had a few injuries, but I feel like the Eagles, it's kind of worrying. Like to me, if I was an Eagles fan, I'd be nervous right now because when I look at the other teams in the NFC,
Hmm.
the way that you guys are playing, even if you get Jalen Hurts back, if you get
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts back, who's already injured, and Lane Johnson back, who's injured, I don't know if you guys are the best team in the NFC right now. I really
Hmm.
I don't. I think that if you look at it now, I think I would take the 49ers over the Eagles right now. And even the Cowboys, I mean, the Cowboys, they always choke in the postseason, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself and be like, oh, the Cowboys are going to make it to the Super Bowl. But the Cowboys have been playing good. If they get everyone healthy and the Eagles get everyone healthy, who knows? I don't think that the Cowboys are going to go into Philly and win, but who knows? And I think also another dangerous team, we always have to talk about this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, dude. It's just what is going on? I mean, they've been horrible all year. They
Yeah.
don't really deserve to make the playoffs. And Tom Brady does typical Tom Brady things, even though they're not playing well this whole season. They're 8-8. They've clinched a playoff spot in the worst division in football, along with the AFC South. And I mean, the Bucks are in prime position because they're going to be the 4th seed in the NFC. They're going to play. They're going to host a home game in the wild card round against the Cowboys
Hmm.
or potentially the Eagles.
Hmm.
So one of those two teams they're going to host. And I mean, they can win that game. I mean, they already beat the Cowboys this year.
Yeah.
It's in
They
Tampa
beat the
Bay
Eagles in the postseason like what, like two
last
years
year.
ago? Yeah, last year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They already beat the Eagles. I mean, this is Tom Brady. I know that their offensive line has had a ton of injuries. Their defense hasn't played great. Their offense has been totally terrible the whole year, but it's Tom Brady. And this is the postseason, and it's just a different game when you go to the postseason. It's just the players are under pressure. You need to execute every single play. Every play is magnified, and Tom Brady's been there before. So I mean, if they are able to win that game and set up a game, even if they win that game and they go to Philly or to San Francisco or to Minnesota, I mean, it's just it's kind of dangerous. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Bucks are kind of dangerous right now. They're lurking. I mean, I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but they could pose the Cowboys, especially if the Cowboys or Eagles, whoever finishes second in the NFC East. I think that the Bucks could win that game, that wild card game, and that would be really unfortunate because that could be a 13-4 team that just gets bounced out in the first round of the playoffs by a 8-9 or 9-8 team.
Yeah. I mean, you look at their game against the Panthers today. They were down like what, like 21 to like
They were
6
down
or
fourteen
something.
zero. They were down
Yeah.
14-0, and then they're down by a ton, and they just come back. I mean, it's just
And like can we talk about like Mike Evans for a second?
he
Because
popped off today.
he had
Popped
like
off out of
50
nowhere.
fantasy points.
Yeah,
All
he
the
went
all the
off
all the
today.
fantasy managers that have already been eliminated from the brackets that
Yeah,
have Mike
yeah.
Evans on their team.
They're like,
But
damn.
yeah, there's a stat that I saw about like consecutive seasons with like 1,000 plus like receiving yards, and
Yeah,
it was Tim Brown for the Raiders who had 9, and this was Mike Evans' ninth consecutive season where he got 1,000, and the other player I want to say was Deion Sanders. I could be
no, no,
wrong.
no. Was it Jerry?
Oh yeah, it was Jerry Rice. Yeah,
Because
Jerry Rice. It's like Jerry Rice with like 11 seasons. Mike Evans is at like 9 seasons right now with 1,000 plus consecutive receiving yards in a season. So yeah, like Mike Evans was just dominant today. He was in all the right places for Tom Brady today. Really like, even being down by 2 scores, just really capitalized the win for the Buccaneers today. It's just something that Tom Brady does. You can never really count
yeah,
him out. You look at Super Bowls that he's had, you look at just like regular season games, especially this year more than anything with such a horrible Buccaneers team. It's
it's
just
true.
like he's still like it's so lucky for him that the rest of the NFC South is just so
Trash.
horrible,
Yeah,
because if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't be in playoff picture right now.
yeah.
That's the crazy part. But
But I mean,
going back to your point about like being nervous as like an Eagles fan, I like wholeheartedly agree. I don't think the Eagles are actually going to get to the Super Bowl, to be fair.
yeah,
And everyone can make their jokes about like, oh, Eagles are frauds. Da da da. Look at our
they're not
season,
frauds.
bro.
It's just that. It
like,
didn't.
we never played
Yeah,
anyone. It was just one of those
yeah,
things. We did what we were supposed to do in the season
yeah,
that we had. Do have a lot. We weren't supposed to lose to the
yeah,
Saints. Some would say we weren't supposed to lose against the Commanders or even the Cowboys. The Cowboys was more of a,
yeah,
was like very 50-50 compared to the other
yeah.
two. But, like, I'm not going to be one and say like, oh, the Eagles are the best team in the nation because we have the best record. No, we have the best record because we've had like a pretty like mid season. It's not been the
Yeah.
worst, but it hasn't been the greatest either. Like we still have to play teams like the Cowboys and like the Giants, especially when the NFC East has been such a dominant conference this year for dominant division this year for absolutely no reason. I mean, before today, it was looking like it would be all four NFC East
Yeah.
teams going into the playoffs. But
Yeah.
Commanders threw today against who did the Commanders play?
Browns.
Oh yeah,
They
the
choked.
Browns.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
just
crazy.
and I again like the 49ers I like. I like the 49ers a lot for the
Yeah.
NFC. Um
Game against the Raiders today, but they pulled it out, and that's just kind of
I
what the good teams. But it's like, it's I don't know. I just didn't feel like. I mean, they played the Raiders. Stidham came in. The Raiders had some juice. They wanted to prove a point, but I mean, the 49ers still came back. They won the game. But I think
mhm,
the big takeaway today for just a big storyline is the two New York teams, two opposite directions. The Jets and Giants both started the year with amazing records, but
mhm,
the Giants ended up making the playoffs after a dominant win
yeah.
over the Colts, 38 to
Mhm.
10. But on the other hand, the Jets just sold their season. They were 6-2, now they're 7-9. They've really struggled, and I think that can be put a lot on the quarterback. I'd
Yep.
say almost all of it on the quarterback because their defense is very good. They have weapons on the offensive side. I think it's unfortunate for the Jets. They have a bright future, but they really need to find a quarterback. Like desperately
Yes.
need to find a quarterback.
Like for like like the beginning of the season, like Zach Wilson just like looked like the guy for the Jets, and then they just kind of hit like a wall, and then they put in
Yeah,
Mike White. Mike White had a good game for them, but then he ended up
not playing good.
not being
Yeah,
so great. Then they were like forced to put Zach Wilson back in, and then
was
there's the whole
terrible.
thing about like him like basically blaming his teammates for like
Yeah,
the losses that they had. And so, like Zach Wilson is clearly going to be out of New York pretty soon.
it's crazy
Um,
because he was drafted as the second overall pick last year, and now to
yeah.
be already out of New York. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean,
And for a team like
one of the biggest.
to already be out of a team like New
Yeah,
York, to be the problem in New York
yeah,
is like, come on, seriously.
yeah,
But
not good.
yeah, it's yeah, the like you said, the Jets, there's a lot of potential there. And it would be really
Yeah.
interesting to see like once all the pieces fit to see like how well the
Oh,
Jets could do.
yeah.
And especially in a conference like the AFC East this year, where it's essentially just been like the Bills dominate and like just ran away with the division early. But you've had, the
Well, you got to look
Dolphins,
at the
the
Dolphins. The
Jets, and the
Dolphins,
Patriots.
we got to talk about the AFC East because the Dolphins started off the year 8-3, and now they're 8-8. They've just sold their season. I mean, they were looking like one of the best teams in the NFL early
Yeah.
in the year, and now they might not even make the playoffs. I think they have to beat the Jets, and then
Mhm.
if the Patriots win, the Patriots are in.
Yeah.
So if the Patriots beat the Bills, then the Dolphins are going to miss out
Mhm.
on the playoffs if I'm not mistaken. But the Dolphins are kind of in a bad spot right now considering where they were early in the year.
Yeah.
They were in the division race. Now they're maybe a wild card team, and they would have to go either to Cincinnati or to Buffalo or to Kansas City. They're not going to win that game. So Tua is also injured. He had his third concussion of the year, and probably is gonna have to sit out the rest of the year. Hopefully they set him out for the rest of the year so he
And
doesn't get a
Teddy
serious
Bridgewater
injury.
got injured today too.
Teddy
So they're
Bridgewater
on
got
they're on
injured, so
their
they're
third string now.
yeah, they're on Thompson, who's their third string. I mean, it's gone downhill for the Dolphins. The Patriots do what the Patriots always do without Tom Brady, just stay in the season, a 500 team, decent team. They win the game with their defense. And I don't think they're gonna be that dangerous in the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, it's gonna be tough for them to beat the Bills, but we'll see the playoff implications of that game. I mean, if the Bills beat the Bengals, I think they clinch the 1 seed.
Hmm.
So I think if I'm yeah, actually no, because then no, they don't clinch the 1 seed, but they get close. But it's still a big game, but I don't know. I don't think the Patriots are going to go to Buffalo, even if it's not a big game for the Bills. I think that the Bills are still going to win that game. I don't think the Patriots have that much quality.
Hmm.
The Lions had a big win today over the Bears, 41-10. They're still in the playoff picture. That game in Green Bay next week is going to be a massive game. Lions, Packers, two teams that started off the year kind of slow, but have been picking it up recently, and they look really good right now. But I think one of those teams might get in if the Seahawks slip up. I'm not sure who the Seahawks play. Who do the Seahawks play in Week 18?
It's got to be like the Niners or
They
the
play the
Rams.
Rams.
Yeah.
Wow. So if the, I mean, I think
Is it
the
in
Seahawks are
LA
gonna win.
or Levi?
I think it's in Seattle.
Why did I say Levi? Why did I say
You're thinking
LA?
of the
Wait,
49ers?
who the hell are we talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry.
The Seahawks are playing the Rams in
Okay.
Seattle,
Yeah.
and I think if the Seahawks win, they're in. So I think it's gonna be unlikely for the Packers and Lions to make the playoffs, but they have a shot. I mean, it's the NFL. Baker Mayfield might put on a show, might
Hmm.
beat the Seahawks, but I think the Seahawks are probably gonna win, make it to the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah.
And that would set up actually a Seahawks 49ers wild card game if the Eagles win the conference, but or not the
Yeah,
conference. If the Eagles
because
get the 1 seed, then the
yeah.
Seahawks would play the 49ers. But I mean, it's just a lot of it's a lot of scenarios right now. A few teams like the Commanders were eliminated today, the Saints were eliminated today, the Panthers were eliminated today, and then on the AFC, I think the Raiders were already eliminated, but the Jets got eliminated today.
No,
But
the Jets were eliminated. The Raiders were eliminated today.
they were also eliminated. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
Raiders were eliminated today, the Browns were eliminated today, and the Jets were eliminated today. But or no, the Browns were already eliminated. But you get what I'm saying. There's all these teams that are getting eliminated.
Hmm.
But just it sets up some big games next week. But I mean, overall, this week was relatively expected. I don't think there's any crazy upsets. I mean, the one thing is the Steelers did beat the Ravens in Baltimore, which was a big win. I mean, the Steelers started the season off horrible. They look like a terrible team. Now they're 500 again. I don't think they've ever finished under 500 with Tomlin as the coach. So I just think that shows how good of a coach Tomlin is with the
Yeah.
roster that they have. They're at 500 right now. I'm not sure who they play in the last week of the year. Let's see who they play. They
Again,
play
it's
against the Browns at home, so they should win that game.
yeah.
But if they win that game, they'll be 9-8. I'm not
And then
sure
it's up to the
exactly how
Patriots. Wait,
it's
don't the
up to
Patriots play the
yeah.
Dolphins?
The Patriots play the Bills. So the Bills would okay, this
Oh,
would have to happen. The Bills would have to beat the Patriots. The Dolphins would have to lose at home to the Jets. And then the Steelers would have to beat the Browns and the Steelers would be in. I think that's kind of unlikely because I think the Dolphins should be able to beat the Jets, but honestly, who knows? Because the
yeah. I
with
don't.
a third string quarterback,
I wouldn't count Steelers out
yeah,
exactly here.
I think the Jets could win that game, even though the Jets are eliminated. I think the Jets could beat the Dolphins. I don't see the Bills losing to the Patriots. So I mean, the Steelers could make the playoffs. I mean, that would be crazy. I mean, after
Yeah.
they looked awful early in the year, now to make the playoffs, that would be crazy. But I
Mhm.
mean, this sets up a massive Week 18. Before even Week 18, we have a massive Bills Bengals game. I think the Bills Bengal game might be the most important regular season game we've had all year,
Oh
just
yeah.
considering the playoff implications. Because in my opinion, I think that it's more likely for an AFC team to win the Super Bowl than the NFC. And I
Hmm.
just think that this really changes the dynamic of the AFC playoff picture in a big way. And I think it's really important this Bills Bengals game. We'll probably have a recap video on this game after they play tomorrow. But I'm just looking forward to it. I think the last week of the season there's gonna be a lot of teams that are heartbroken and a lot of teams that are super excited to make the playoffs. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, it could be a crazy week. I think all the games are gonna be played at the same time because they
Yeah.
want to make sure that
I think there
no
are
team knows
Saturday
the result.
games
They're all
this
Saturday,
week.
yeah. So we'll have a video coming out on that, and
Yeah.
we'll get some content to you on that. But I think that's basically it for the NFL this week. Nothing too crazy. I mean, the Cowboys beat the Titans on Thursday Night Football. The Falcons beat the Cardinals. I mean,
On a
stuff
game-winning
like
field goal.
that.
Did you see the tweet that the Falcons have?
No.
It was they added Ohio State. And for those of you who don't know, and
Oh, because
if you haven't watched our last video, we talked about the college football semifinal between Ohio State and Georgia, and they played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is home to the Falcons. And the kicker for the Ohio State missed a field goal in order to tie the game, right? It was to tie the
no win
game,
the game.
to
They
win
would
the
have won the
game.
game. Yeah.
So yeah, he missed the field. He shanked it far left in order
I
to
mean, it
win
was
the
a far
game.
field goal, but he totally shanked it.
And then yeah, the yeah, so what is it's like coup or
Oh yeah,
sue?
coup. Yeah.
Yeah, and he like, nails this field goal to win the game against the Cardinals. And the Falcons tweeted at Ohio State. They're like, this is how you score a game-winning field goal. And I was like,
It's
wow, that is
cold, bro.
rough.
Yeah, that is rough to be roasting
But
college kids
hey,
like that. But I mean, that's what it was. NFL Week 17 it was this week. Yes,
Yeah, one
17
more
this week.
week of NFL
What
games.
one more week of NFL, then we can do some recaps, some playoff previews, playoff predictions. We're excited. This is gonna be a big time of year. A lot of good playoff games. But yeah, we have one more week and we have the big game, the big game tomorrow, Bills Bengals on Monday Night Football. But
Yep.
then next week we're gonna get into all the action for week 18 and see you next time.
Yeah. Make sure to follow us on our social medias, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, at Dubs Only Sports, and then Spotify and YouTube. You can find us there as well. Those where all the full episodes are. Instagram and YouTube, Instagram and TikTok, we just kind of do like the best parts or the most
Hilarious
controversial
clips.
parts. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like, that we just want to like engage people's, interest in the games and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us and episode 11. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Doses.